Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Linux Experience. I'm Tom, your host. I know, it's another bald guy on the internet talking about Linux. It's a thing. I'm Tom, your host, and today I want to talk about Pop OS. Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I want to talk about Pop OS. You know, this OS has really come to its own lately. It started off life, I would say, about 2.5, 3 years ago, as basically a branded edition from System 76. Now, System 76 is a fabulous hardware company, and they make laptops and they make desktops. They make pretty medium, very beefy machines to ultra desktops and servers. Fabulous company, and they had been shipping with Ubuntu. Now, apparently, when Ubuntu abandoned the Unity desktop, they got afraid that they might be abandoning the desktop altogether, or at least going to put uh, significantly less resources into it, and they were worried about what the future might hold for their company, for the OS that they were shipping on their computers. So that's where the idea with Pop was born. So in the beginning, it was just the interface that they did their Gnome tweaks and they did their branding, and as a result, I don't think too many people paid too much attention to it. I know that I didn't. I don't use Ubuntu very much myself anyway, and this was just another GNOME shell. So what? But over the past, I'd say, year or so, probably longer, but at least as far as people started talking about it, over the past year or so, people really started to take notice. They've started to come into their own. And now you've got a very, very capable and a very, very interesting desktop. So let's take a look here. Here's the Pop OS website. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I find kind of strange, this is not really a criticism, but just gives me pause, is the very cartoonish nature of the branding, and even indeed the name itself. Pop exclamation point underscore OS is the official name. And I don't know. I don't know what kind of a name that is, but okay. It works. So welcome to Pop OS. And they have a lot of different features that they're trying to explore and they're trying to advertise. And the first one is a relatively new one. They're auto tiling. Basically, taking the GNOME shell and turning it into a tiling window manager, or at least almost a tiling window. It's very interesting and has a lot of potential. We'll take a look in a few minutes. So yeah, obviously they have workspaces and keyboard navigation. I would hope so if you're going to have a tiling window manager. Now they talk about their development toolkits. Very normal stuff. They're obviously putting a lot of emphasis on not quite straight and narrow path. Media production, I would say that's more mainstream, but engineering and bioinformatics, whatever that is exactly. Treatments for bacterial diseases, interesting. I mean, I don't know exactly what that has to do with this OS, but apparently it has something to do with it. So the first part of their webpage puts a stress on stuff like that, which is interesting. Not the main reason why you want to run Pop, and I think you do want to run Pop, especially if you have newer hardware. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so obviously they develop Pop for their own hardware, and they're saying that if you own a System 76 system, computer, desktop, laptop, you're going to want to put Pop on it if you don't already. I mean, that goes without saying. Obviously, it's going to run well on their own hardware, but the interesting thing about it is it runs fabulously on anybody else's hardware, especially if you have a newer system. Right now, I'm running a Lenovo L340. This is a fairly new computer, and it takes to this operating system like a duck to water. So I've been very pleased with it. More on that in a minute. All right. Security, since Pop is a laptop computer company, Security is a big issue for them, so they do have encryption as the default. It says out of the box. I guess that's if it's shipped. If it's shipped, I believe that they shipped the home partition already encrypted. But if you're installing it, it's the default option. If you don't want your home partition encrypted, you have to opt out of it, which is, I think, a pretty good balance. It's a pretty good way to do this because they're not forcing you into it, but they're encouraging you to do what is essentially the right thing anyway, and it's up to you. All right, update on your terms. Yes, of course, we are not Windows. We certainly hope that. Privacy, again, typical Linux fashion. They don't harvest your data. And firmware management. Now, this is interesting. Okay, as we've said, they're making this for their own computer, so obviously they have access to the firmware that they're shipping and the updates that become available for their motherboards and whatever. So they have this system in place where you can update the firmware with the click of a button. And let me tell you, in Linux, that is a pretty good feat, right? It's not always that easy. It's usually possible, but it can be a pain in the neck because hardware companies are really marketing and designing and pushing out updates for the most part for Windows computers, Windows users. And so all the utilities and things that they use to install don't really make it over to Linux. So the System 76 team, they're taking it upon themselves to ship that to you as a System 76 owner. But I have heard, and I do believe, that it will work for other computers too if you're sharing in some of the hardware, motherboards and what have you, processors. This computer at the moment seems to be relatively up to date. There's nothing available, but I'd be willing to bet that at some point, even this computer, which is not a Pop! OS product, like I said, it's Lenovo, will have some firmware available for it. If not this one, but certainly others, right? Just depends on what becomes available to them and what they need. But it's a fantastic, fantastic feature, and other distros can take it and run with it if they want to add more support. All right, compatible with most software tools? Well, sure. I guess what they're trying to get at here, without saying it explicitly, is that they have Flatpaks enabled by default. Of course, they have the Ubuntu repositories, because that's what it's based on. They have their own repositories, which is mostly hardware stack. And then they have Flatpaks for what you may need. So, oh yeah, it does mention Flatpaks right here. So that is the ecosystem that they have available. I should mention that snaps are not enabled by default. They haven't gone full Linux Mint and disabled them, but they did not install them, and I believe, well, I don't want to say that, but oh yes, I believe here, you see we have this Chromium. It's either a Flatpak or it's their own version of Chromium is available for you to install. We all know the tempest in a teapot that caused when Linux Mint disabled that functionality, that ability to install Chromium. But that's a subject for another video, perhaps. All right. Now, other features. It's very interesting to me that they talk about hybrid graphics and gaming all the way at the bottom of the page. Hybrid graphics and gaming is the reason why you want to install this distro in the first place. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, like I do, it is so easy and streamlined and workable. I highly, highly recommend that you give this distro a look. Now, I'll tell you how much I like this. You might be surprised to learn I have never, ever before this distro installed Gnome 3 on bare metal. I didn't do it even for a minute. I might have looked at one or two Ubuntu distributions in a VM just out of curiosity. But I never installed, never used, never lived in Gnome 3. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It was big and bloated, and weird, and I didn't like the interface. So I started to go to lighter desktops, and then I went to tiling window managers after that, and that got me into Arch, and I was very happy there, very happy there. But when I got this computer, I decided that instead of trying to get all that working on Arch, which could be done, absolutely, let's give this a try. It's supposed to work out of the box. Let's see how it goes. And I was very, pleasantly surprised. So here we are. So hybrid graphics and gaming. Like I say, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, if you have a very new AMD card even, or Intel card, Intel integrated graphics, this system is going to work fabulously. Now, when you download the ISO, be aware that there are two downloads available. There's the traditional download, which is basically for AMD and Intel, and then there's the download if you have NVIDIA graphics chip. So that is important to note, okay? And I do believe I heard that if you have the NVIDIA graphics chip, you can't have secure boot enabled. I don't know why that would be. This day and age, any Linux distribution should be able to work with secure boot, but I don't believe you can. So you best disable it. All right, so hybrid graphics gaming it works pretty much fantastically and out of the box. I'm not a big gamer myself, but I know that's important to very many people. So this is definitely something to take a look at. And dark mode, yes, they have a dark mode. They basically only have dark mode and light mode. I believe dark mode is the default. And look at this cute little thing here. I thought, oh look, it looks just like the button. Click it and the web page goes into dark mode. That's a nice touch. I've never seen anything like that before, and it is just creative loveliness. Thank you, Pop. Thank you, System76, for your sense of humor. All right, so let's take a look at the desktop. So here we are on the vanilla Pop desktop. All right, let's see. Let's change this background right away. I think that's what we need to do here. All right, let's see. What do they have? I haven't installed anything on this desktop just yet. That looks nice. It's pretty good. An actual photo. Pretty good. Anything else interesting? Yeah, a lot of these are. That's nice. A little bit too reflecty, but okay. These guys are having fun over there. You can just tell. Definitely having fun. There's a different color scheme. Okay. Okay, it reminds me of the Jetsons. Am I showing my age by giving you that reference? Meet George Jetson. Yeah, I used to watch when I was a kid. All right. So, yeah, I think we're going to go with this one for now. I'll just wind up installing wallpapers anyway. So this is Pop's customized settings menu. It's quite a bit more detailed, more feature-rich than the Gnome default settings menu. It doesn't have absolutely everything that the tweak menu has, but pretty close. I mean, you've got your Wi-Fi, which I haven't turned on, network, typical things, Bluetooth, appearance we were just at. Oh, by the way, this is where you can change your theme from dark to light. Light theme is very, very bright. I don't particularly want to use that, but it's there if you like it. Now, notifications, that's tied in with, where is it? The online accounts. This is a Gnome feature. Like I say, I never really lived in Gnome, but I know that this exists, where you can sign into your various accounts, Google and Nextcloud is all right, Facebook, etc., etc. Is there more? Yeah, there's more. Oh, there's just a regular email and okay. But I haven't done this. I haven't really given it much thought, but my initial reaction is, I'm already a slave to my phone. Why do I need to be a slave to my phone on my computer? So that is going to reduce what notifications you get in any case. Now, sure, a lot of these programs can give you some, and that's fine. But I don't see the need to get a pop-up every time I get an email or something like that. And you can always install KD Connect if you're really hungry for your phone notifications. And then every time you get a text message, you'll get a pop-up too. Not doing it, but that's up to you. All right. Applications, various options. Okay, that's privacy. These are pretty nice, pretty standard options. You get location services you can opt into. Thunderbolt doesn't apply. File history. That's basically the database for your recent files and things like that. And screen lock if you wanted to time out and lock the screen, that kind of thing. All right, sharing. I haven't really fooled with this. Like I say, I'm not really big on Gnome. I think this is really a Gnome thing. I did turn this on, although I haven't fooled with it yet. I'm not sure if you need to have other instances of Gnome on the network to take advantage of it. Probably you do, but like I say, I haven't really done much with that. Regular sound things. This seems to take the place of the Pulse Audio Daemon, which, okay, I guess. Probably will install that. Power options, very, very typical. Now this display thing is nice. It doesn't show anything now, but when you have another monitor connected, they give you the various options where if you want to extend the screen, or if you want to mirror the screen, or if you want to turn off the internal monitor and just use the external one, they all pop up by default. It's very nice. Touchpad is very good. Now keyboard shortcuts, we'll get into more of this in a bit, but they have very, very extensive shortcuts available. Most of them are disabled by default. You can enable it, but really, really very nice. Very nice. This is their traditional keyboard shortcuts, keyboard bindings, and their Windows tiling keyboard bindings. Tiling makes them all together. The tiling, which we'll get into, has a subset that they display. Subset of key binding. All right, printers, very normal stuff. There are my printers. Movable media, oh, that's just that regular old. Color profile, that's kind of nice. Here's that firmware option I was talking about. Like I say, computer doesn't have any, it's not supported at the moment. Region and language, your usual. Universal access, I've turned on large text. That's all I've done there. Your typical user thing. Default applications. All right, Geary. Interesting. Can I? No, I'll have to install something for that. Yeah, let's change that while we're at it. Image viewer, that's good for now. Date and time, blah, blah, blah. And about. All right. So, as I was saying, this is all very nice and very interesting and very, very well put together. But that's not the killer app. Okay, there's everything, every OS has to have a killer app to put itself on the market. And Pop! OS's killer app is right here. Like I said, if you have an NVIDIA card, you go to these power settings where I have the battery, and you see you can change your graphics mode with a click. Now, of course, you can set up any distribution to do this. It's not black magic. It is, however, a pain in the neck. And especially if your graphics card is pretty new, it can be more of a pain in the neck. Now, this is not a super new computer, design computer. It's new for me, but came out last year. So this wouldn't be an issue on Ubuntu or other distributions. But if you bought your top-of-the-line NVIDIA graphics card yesterday, you're going to want to install Pop today, because Pop will support you out of the box. They are really, really on top of the hardware stack in a way that Ubuntu, for example, just can't do with their 6-month release cycles, and I think their 3-month updates, which for Ubuntu for a stable release is pretty good. I'm not knocking Ubuntu, but Pop is up to the minute. They get it, they test it, they tweak it, and they ship it. And they do it usually on the day of the hardware launch. That's pretty spectacular. You can't beat that. Can't beat that. They have a stable base, and then they have an up-to-the-minute hardware enablement. It's just a fabulous, fabulous thing. Battery life. No, I want high performance. I didn't see that. Okay. Because I am plugged in. The idea, in case you don't know, for these Optimus settings, is when you get your traditional Intel CPU motherboard, you're going to have integrated graphics built in, as this computer does, and pretty much every computer does, but has an Intel chip. So your NVIDIA chip, your NVIDIA card, even though it's not a card in this case, is your external GPU. So and of course, you paid for your video card, you want to use it, right? But there are times when you might not. If you're in a laptop and you're on battery power and you're not doing anything that requires that graphics card, you really do want to turn it off, because it's going to save a lot of power, a lot of battery life. Okay? So you can go into integrated graphics, that means your local Intel graphics, NVIDIA graphics only, which is what I have selected. Hybrid graphics, now that's the tricky one. Okay, that's the one that takes a little bit of setup to get right, where you are basically running Intel most of the time, but you can pick your specific applications that you want to run your NVIDIA graphics card on. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the energy saving of running the Intel card, and then you can have the performance of your NVIDIA card when you want it. Okay, in compute graphics, that's kind of the same as hybrid. I think it just more easily allows you to use your GPU for computing tasks, which, if you're into the science, I guess that's what they were talking about on the website with scientific applications. And also for chess, by the way. I'm kind of a chess enthusiast. You can use certain chess programs that will take advantage of your GPU, and that would be the mode that you would want for that. Okay, so this is the killer app right here, okay? It's really nice to have this functionality without having to work for it, okay? I don't mind. I'm a Linux user, long time. I don't mind working for my setup, because that's what we do, You figure things out, you look things up, you go on wikis, you go on to forums, and you figure out how to get your computer to do what you want it to do, right? If you're a Linux user, that's what's gonna be your life. However, I'm not a masochist, right? If this is available out of the box like this, I'm going to consider it, and I have considered it, and I'm glad I did. Now let's talk about possibly killer app number 2. To have the tiling window manager. Okay, this is an actual thing. Okay, I didn't take it seriously when I first heard about it, but it's an actual thing. All right, let me test this. I think mod Y will toggle it. No? I have to look it up. Wasn't it mod Y? Yes, it was mod Y. Okay. Mod Y will toggle that little radio button. And we are now in tiling window mode. You notice that this went into full screen. Let's get rid of that. All right, now the subset of key bindings is right here. And these are editable. So you're not stuck with these, which is, very good. If you're going to have a tiling window manager, you have to be able to edit your key bindings. That's just the way it is. So good on them for giving us those options. Arrow keys or the Vim keys, very standard. They have a launcher, super slash or mod slash, however you want to say it. Shift focus, all those kind of very normal stuff. So let's see. Let's open the terminal. I believe it's mod T, and it is. So if I use the mod key, and right now I'm using the Vim commands or the arrow commands, and we can shift focus. Okay, that's very nice. Now the way this one works by default, this tiling, is if you take the active window, and when you open a new window, it splits the active window. All right, so you see that I had closed that, which is super Q or mod Q. Now look, if I have the shortcut window highlighted as active, and I open a terminal, it splits the shortcut. And if I have the one on the right and I split it, whoops, still not using keys, bear with me. You split it, it'll split that. Basic functionality, but pretty much good enough. You know what you're going to get, and it doesn't take a lot of time to get used to it. So now that I have the bottom right Window highlighted, open another, and it splits that. There we go one more time. Yes, and it seems to follow the geometry of the window that you're splitting. In other words, see if I can explain that. Close the. If your window is longer than it is wide, then it's going to split it in half vertically, like that. Now, if your window is wider than it is long, like it is now, then it's going to split horizontally, like that. Very sane default, right? I can dig it. I can dig it. All right, this doesn't offer any other customizability. I don't believe. You have to stick with this default pattern, this default layout. But if you can only have one, this isn't a bad one. I think it's pretty much just fine. All right, Howard, you can resize windows, of course. So let's see here. Oh, okay. So they have. I was going to talk about modes. They have a adjustment mode. All right. So super enter gets you in adjustment mode. That's what that grayish highlight is. And then you can use your Vim key. Whoops. No, that's move window. Okay, shift. If you shift and use your arrow keys, let's say, or your Vim keys, you can change the size of the window that you're looking at. And without the shift, it swaps places. Okay, that's fine. Enter applies the changes. So that brings me to mode. That's what I was going to say. The one real drawback to this tiling window scheme is that I haven't been able to find a way to create my own modes, user-created modes, because that's extremely, extremely useful when you're in a tiling window manager, believe me, because you're going to install applications, and the ones that you use more often, you're going to want to use a key binding. And very soon, you start to run out of sane key binding. Okay? So instead of having, let's say, if you had Firefox as mod F, or if F is taken, let's say mod I for internet. Okay, fine. But let's say you're running Chromium. So then, okay, that'll be, I guess, mod C. All right. So far, so good. But you're going to start to run out of keys. And you're going to have to start, like, you're going to use mod slash, or, well, that's taken, but maybe mod and a number, or mod and a dollar sign. You're going to start to use all of these weird key bindings because you've run out of good ones. And not only is that a pain in and of itself, but it becomes extremely hard to remember. So if you could create your own mode, like instead of mod I being the internet, right? Let's look at that. So if I want to open my browser, instead of having mod I be, okay, give me my internet browser, how about mod I be my internet mode? See? And then the subsequent key press will open the browser in particular. So then I can have any keys I want because I'm in a mode. The keys only work, those bindings only work when you're in that mode. So F all by itself could be Firefox. C all by itself could be Chromium. You know, Q all by itself could be Qt browser, etc., etc. That makes it A, much easier to remember, and B, you don't have to use wacky keys, because you can reuse keys for other modes for other things. Like I can have a studio mode, and then V could be for volume, and then I could be in a editing mode, and V could be for Vim. I mean, just an example. I don't really think you need a key binding for Vim, but whatever. So I would hope that come back here. I would hope that Pop! OS 76, if you're listening, if you can give us an option to create user modes, that would go a long way, a very long way, in making this a very usable tiling window manager, even for someone who's a little bit experienced. All right, and let's see. Let's get out of tiling mode. Installed. See, the thing I like about this OS is that it's really extremely light. Yeah, Gnome is a monster, but that's pretty much the only monster they've got. This is the vanilla install. The only thing I've installed is OBS Studio. Obviously, I need that, otherwise I wouldn't be making this video. And VLC came along with it. So, other than these two programs which I installed, this is what Pop! OS comes with in terms of default software. We have the Office Suite system. We have disk usage, disks. That's Gnome disks. This is some of the NVIDIA tool. They have a password vault. Very nice. I haven't even looked at that. Power. Startup applications. Let's take a look at that. All right. Firmware manager check. That's the firmware we were talking about. Every time you boot up, it's going to check and see if new firmware is available. Nice touch. Flatpak. Your network. The NVIDIA settings. Release check. Okay. And of course your keys. This is pretty light. All right. Compare this to Ubuntu, for example, where there's a lot more things going on. This is your basics. And this is all you need and all you want. I love it. All right. Now I don't know what this weather thing is. I don't like that, but it might be useful. Yeah. Utilities. All right. Image viewer, screenshot. Oh, by the way, my first reaction when I saw this USB flasher, which I think they call, whoops, trying to talk and type at the same time, popsicle. My first reaction was, is that what the world needs? Is yet another USB flasher? Writer, whatever you want to call it. Writer is probably the right word. However, this has two fantastic features that I think really make it worthwhile. Can't show you this because I don't have an ISO downloaded, but they have a hash here. Right here on the one and only window, you could cut and paste your SHA-256 or whatever it might be, and then after you've chosen your image and have it loaded, you can check it right there on the screen. That's a really nice touch. Yeah, it's not that hard to just pull up a terminal and do that, but that is a nice, useful touch. And the other thing I noticed, because I did burn one image with this, is that they automatically, by default, take whatever's left over on the USB drive and create a partition for you that you can write on. And that's very useful and sometimes a pain in the neck when you want to do that by yourself. So kudos again to the Pop guys, the System 76 guys, for giving us a very, very nice utility. It wasn't asked for, it wasn't necessarily needed, but it's the kind of thing where you didn't know you needed it until you had it. And it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. So there you go. So that was just a brief look at Pop! OS. I hope I've done it justice, at least a little bit. It's really the kind of thing where you've got to check it out. You've got to live with it for a while. The more you do, the more you will appreciate it. I mean, it's pretty good, I have to say. If there's one thing I would say is that these guys, I wanted to talk about the guys. All right, Jeremy Soller, he's made a few appearances in various places on the net. I think he's the lead developer. Seems like a very intelligent, very thoughtful guy. He's in charge of this team. And my understanding is that Jeremy, Ian, and Michael are the three main dudes. I apologize if you other guys feel left out. You certainly shouldn't. I just don't know so much about you. But they deserve a lot of thanks and a lot of appreciation for the work that they have done in getting this Pop! OS going. So my hat's off to you. Actually, a lot more than that. And it's very much appreciated. Thank you. So this video was brought to you by, well, essentially me at this point. First one, and I hope to make more, and I hope you found it of use. At the moment, there's nothing else you can do, but pretty soon I'll get a Patreon page together And the website is coming together nicely. That will be linuxexperience.xyz. Com wasn't available. Somebody's parked on it, of course. So XYZ isn't so bad. We'll call that X for Excellent. YouTube Zenith. I just made that up. But I would like to thank some patrons I do have in the background, specifically Jack. You know who you are, and it is very much appreciated. I hope the list becomes longer as time goes on, but whether or not it does, I hope you liked it. See you next time.